Have you ever found yourself staring out the window, a little longer than usual, holding a warm cup of coffee, wondering, is this all there is to my day? You meant to do something, anything, but somehow the hours slipped past, and the quiet in the house grew a little too loud. If that sounds familiar, I want you to know you're not alone. Staying home more often, especially in your 60s and beyond, can feel like a blessing. Peaceful, safe, familiar. But if we're not careful, it can quietly turn into a trap that steals a little bit of our joy each day. I've spoken to so many wonderful women over the years who once lived full, vibrant lives filled with people, places to be, and things to do. And now, with kids grown, friends moving away, or simply preferring the calm of home, they've found themselves in a slower rhythm. But what often goes unnoticed is how certain small habits can sneak in and slowly dull the sparkle that used to light up their days. That's why today, I want to sit down with you, just like two old friends would, and talk about some habits that seem harmless at first. But over time, they chip away at your energy, your confidence, and your connection to the world around you. These are things I've seen, things I've lived, and things I've helped others gently step away from, so they could start feeling more alive again, right there in their own homes. Let's begin with something I've heard more times than I can count. It doesn't matter what I wear. No one's going to see me anyway. Now look, I get it. When you're not going out or expecting visitors, it feels silly to get dressed up or even put on real clothes at all. Pajamas are comfortable. That oversized sweater knows all your secrets. But here's what I've seen happen, time and time again. When a woman stops getting dressed for herself, stops putting on the lipstick she used to love, or brushing her hair the way she used to like, it's rarely about fashion. It's usually a quiet signal that she's starting to fade from her own life. I remember a woman named Lila I met at a community group. Early 70s, sharp as a tack, loved gardening and playing the piano. But after she stopped teaching music and began staying home more, she told me she had a uniform. Gray sweatpants, no bra, hair in a bun. Every day. For months. She laughed it off when she told me, but then she paused and said, "Somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing myself in the mirror." So, one morning, she made a decision. Nothing drastic. Just a clean blouse, a soft scarf she hadn't worn in years, and a dab of her favorite perfume. She said she felt silly at first, dressed up with nowhere to go. But something shifted. She smiled more. She called an old friend. She started playing the piano again. It's not about dressing for the world. It's about dressing for the woman you still are. And while we're on the subject of treating ourselves with care, let me tell you about another habit that hides in plain sight. Skipping meals, or treating them like chores. I've seen it over and over. A woman used to cook dinner every night for her husband, maybe even for a whole household. Now that it's just her, she starts telling herself, why bother? Before long, dinner becomes a handful of crackers, maybe some yogurt out of the tub, eaten standing at the sink. She tells herself it's no big deal, but I've seen the light in someone's eyes return when they reclaim their meals. Not as fuel, but as a small act of joy. There's a woman I know, Carol, who told me she hadn't used her dining table in 3 years. It had become a storage spot for mail and paper towels. So one day, she cleared it off. Set one place. Just for herself. She played some music. Frank Sinatra, I think. And she made herself a little meal. Nothing fancy. Just eggs, toast, and tea. But she lit a candle. She sat down. She gave herself the gift of being present with her own company. And after that, she told me, it was like remembering I still matter. Now, I'm not saying every meal needs to be a production, but if you can, sit down, use a plate, put on music, or even better, cook with a friend over the phone, share recipes, laugh at the burnt toast, and make it fun. Meals are more than food. They are proof that you are still worth showing up for. And speaking of showing up, have you noticed how easy it becomes to let the days blur together when you're mostly indoors? The calendar doesn't feel as important. Maybe you used to write down lunch dates, doctor's appointments, haircuts. Now it's easy to say, "Hey, I'll do it tomorrow." But let me tell you, when tomorrow keeps getting pushed off, it quietly turns into never. There's something grounding, something powerful about keeping a small routine. I don't mean an overwhelming schedule, not at all. I'm talking about simple things. Making your bed, watering your plants on the same day each week, opening the curtains every morning at 8 or 0, even if the only one who sees it is your cat. These small anchors in the day give shape to your time. And more importantly, they remind you that the day still belongs to you. I once knew a lady named Jean who swore by what she called her daily dignity plan. Each morning she'd brush her hair, make her bed, put on earrings, even if she wasn't going anywhere. She said, "It reminds me that I'm not just passing time, I'm living it." Now I know some folks might say, "What's the point?" And to that I say, the point is you. You are the point. If you won't show up for yourself, who will? When we start treating ourselves like we're already invisible, the world starts believing it too. But I believe, and I've seen it with my own eyes, that when a woman reclaims these little habits, she starts coming back to life in the most beautiful, subtle ways. She stands a little taller. She smiles without realizing. She finds reasons to laugh again. So, if you've been living in pajamas for a few too many days, or if you've had crackers for dinner 3 nights in a row, I'm not here to scold you. I'm here to remind you. It's not too late to change. It's never too late to start showing up for yourself again. And showing up doesn't have to be loud. It can be as simple as opening the window to let in the breeze, brushing your hair with intention, or making your morning coffee in your favorite mug instead of whatever's closest in the cupboard. These little acts, they're not silly, they're sacred. Because the truth is, you're not done. There's still music left to play, warmth to share, and stories to live. And I believe the most important one is the one you're writing right now. Even if it starts with something as simple as getting dressed tomorrow morning. There's something that happens when the house gets too quiet. Not the kind of peaceful quiet where you can hear the birds or the tea kettle whistling, but the kind of silence that feels heavy. The kind that makes the hours stretch long and the motivation to do anything just slip right through your fingers. I've known many women, strong, smart, funny women, who told me the same thing in different words. Some days I just don't feel like talking. And over time, those days pile up. Maybe the phone rings less. Maybe the kids are busy. And slowly, without meaning to, you start letting the outside world fade a little too far into the background. But here's what I want you to remember. Even when you stay at home, your voice still matters. It's not about how many people you talk to. It's about staying connected in some small way, so you don't lose touch with your own presence in the world. There's a woman I think about often. Her name's Rose. She's 76 and lives alone with her 2 parakeets, which she spoils more than most people spoil their grandkids. After her sister passed, Rose stopped answering the phone. She said she didn't want to talk because she had nothing new to say. What am I going to do? Tell them I watched Jeopardy again and reheated soup? But when we started chatting regularly, just once a week at first, she began telling stories again. She'd remember something funny her sister used to say, or a detail from their childhood she hadn't thought about in years. And slowly, her voice got stronger. Her stories got longer. And she started calling me first. That's the power of connection. Even if all you do is call someone to say, "Hey, I was thinking of you." That little act is like lighting a candle in the dark. It's enough to remind you that you're still here. You're still part of something. So don't wait for someone else to reach out. Be the spark. Now, while we're on the subject of light and warmth, I've got to talk to you about the sneaky way comfort can turn into confinement. And I'm talking about the habit of spending nearly your entire day in one single room of your house. Now, I've been guilty of this myself. After a while, the bedroom becomes your living room, your kitchen, your everything. The TV is within reach. The snacks are nearby. The bed's right there, looking mighty cozy. Before long, the rest of the house becomes a museum of spaces you used to use. The dining table starts collecting dust. The couch gets forgotten. Even the front porch feels like foreign ground. But here's the thing. Your home isn't just where you sleep. It's where your life continues. And when you shrink your world down to one room, you're not just simplifying. You're slowly making your life smaller. I remember hearing from a woman named Glenda. Early 80s, sharp wit, loved crossword puzzles. One day she told me, "I realized I hadn't sat in my own living room in 4 months. I was living in my bed like I was on bed rest, except nobody told me to." That line stayed with me. So she made a little change. She started having her morning coffee in the kitchen again. Then she moved her evening reading chair to the living room. Eventually, she told me she started feeling like the queen of her castle again. Not just the tenant of one room. It doesn't have to be a big production. You don't need to redecorate or entertain guests every week. Just open the curtains. Dust off a chair in another room. Water your plants while walking through the house. Move. Look. Live. And while you're exploring the corners of your home again, do me one favor. Open that front door. There's something symbolic, almost spiritual, about opening the front door. It's not just to let in light or fresh air. It's a message to the world that you're still part of it, that you're not hiding, that you still want to see and be seen. I once heard a woman say, "I stopped opening the door because I didn't want to admit how long it had been since I left the house." That broke my heart a little. Because that door doesn't just protect you, it can also quietly isolate you if you let it. One morning, just open it. Step out, even just to your porch or balcony. Feel the sun on your face. Let the breeze lift your hair. Watch a squirrel do something ridiculous. Say hello to the mailman. Even if you're not going anywhere, open that door like you might. Because it opens more than your home. It opens your spirit. And now that we've cracked the door, let's crack another barrier. The one that says, "I'm too old for that." This one right here might be the biggest lie we start telling ourselves after 60. Sometimes it creeps in like a joke. "Oh, I'm too old to try that." Other times it's more serious. "I don't belong in that crowd." Or "that kind of thing isn't for someone my age." But you know what I've learned? When a woman says she's too old, what she usually means is, "I'm afraid I'll look silly," or "I don't want to fail." And let me tell you, looking a little silly while trying something new is a whole lot better than feeling invisible while doing nothing at all. There's a lady I met through my niece named Betty. She was 74 when she took her first online painting class. Didn't even own a laptop before that. Had to borrow her grandson's tablet. She said her hands were shaking so badly during the first session she could barely draw a circle. But by the third class, she was painting little scenes from her garden and grinning like a schoolgirl every time she showed someone. That's the beauty of curiosity. It doesn't have an expiration date. Try learning how to bake something new. Watch a video on bird calls. Join a Zoom book club. Download a beginner yoga app. You don't have to be good at it. You just have to let yourself try. Because when you do, you remind yourself that there's still more life in you than you thought. And let's be honest, what's really the worst that could happen? You mess up? You start over? You laugh at yourself? That sounds like living to me. And frankly, I think you've earned the right to live a little wildly, even from the comfort of your own home. Now, before we go any further, I want you to take a slow, deep breath with me. Go ahead. In and out. Because we're about to talk about something tender. Something that sneaks into your home so quietly, you might not even realize it's happening. I'm talking about the way your memories can start to take up more space than your present. You see, I once walked into a home that felt like it belonged to someone who'd stopped living years ago. Every wall held a photo, every shelf held something from the past. A wedding portrait, baby shoes, yellowed letters, a dusty trophy. It was beautiful, yes, but heavy. As though the air itself was holding its breath. The woman who lived there, Margaret, told me something I'll never forget. She said, "This house stopped being mine when my husband died. I just preserved it, like a museum." She wasn't exaggerating. His slippers were still by the bed. His coat still on the hook by the door. She hadn't touched a thing in 5 years. Now listen, memories are precious. Of course they are. They remind us who we loved and how we loved. But when your whole home becomes a shrine to what was, it makes it hard to believe in what could still be. I gently asked Margaret what she might do with his old office if it didn't have to stay frozen in time. She paused for a long moment, then whispered, "I used to paint, a long time ago." That one sentence brought tears to my eyes. Because right there, buried under all that quiet grief, was a flicker of life. Over the next few weeks, she slowly cleared that room. Not carelessly, not to forget, but to make space for her own hands to create again. She kept his watch, a photo, and one of his favorite books. The rest she lovingly donated or packed away. And in its place came brushes, canvas, and a soft little radio that played the old jazz she used to love. That room didn't erase her memories. It let them breathe. It gave them space to live alongside her present. So if you've got spaces frozen in time, rooms, closets, shelves, ask yourself gently, is this honoring the past, or is it holding me back from living now? You deserve more than a museum. You deserve a home that reflects who you are today, still growing, still creating, still here. And speaking of growth, that brings me to something that might be the most important habit of all to avoid. The belief that you've finished growing. Now, I know what some folks say. At my age, I've earned the right to slow down. And sure, there's beauty in slowing down. In choosing peace. But slowing down isn't the same as shutting down. Because as long as you're breathing, you're becoming. You're not a finished project. You're not a story that ended on your 65th birthday. There are still things you haven't discovered about yourself. Still moments of wonder left to find. Even if they happen right there in your kitchen, barefoot, humming an old tune. Let me tell you about Florence. She was 79 when she decided to learn Spanish. Said she wanted to surprise her daughter-in-law one day. She practiced a few minutes every morning using an app her grandson showed her. Didn't get every word right, but she tried. And when Christmas came around, she stood up after dinner, raised her glass, and toasted the family with a few wobbly but beautiful words on Espanol. Her daughter-in-law cried. Florence beamed. She didn't learn Spanish because she had to. She learned it because she still wanted to grow. I think that's the real secret. When we keep a little curiosity in our pocket, when we believe there's still something new out there for us, we stay young in spirit. We stay open. And we prove to ourselves day after day that we're not done yet. Even if all you do is read a new book genre, try Tai Chi in the living room, or learn how to use the silly voice command on your TV remote. That's growth. That's choosing life. And let's not pretend this is just about learning new tricks. It's about reclaiming something inside of you that never really left. The part of you that still wants to laugh, explore, feel a little spark of excitement when the mail arrives or the flowers bloom. That part of you doesn't have a deadline. That part of you is eternal. So, my dear friend, if you've been sitting with some of these habits, wearing the same clothes day after day, eating alone without joy, letting your world shrink to one room, holding on to the past a little too tightly, or telling yourself your best days are behind you, please hear me when I say this. You are not fading. You are not finished. You are still needed, still noticed, still incredibly capable of lighting up a room, even if it's just your own living room, even if no one else is there to see it. Because the real point of all this, it's not to avoid bad habits just for the sake of it. It's to make space for you to shine again, to feel like each day has meaning no matter how simple it is, to get to the end of your day and feel proud, not for how much you did, but for how well you showed up for yourself. Maybe that means you'll call an old friend this week. Maybe it means you'll clear off your dining table and eat with real silverware again. Maybe you'll dust off that notebook you haven't touched in years and start writing again. Even if it's just a sentence. Whatever it is, do it with intention. Do it with love. And most importantly, do it for you. If this little talk made you smile, gave you a nudge, or helped you see yourself in a new light, I hope you'll give the video a like. And if you know another strong, beautiful woman in her 60s or beyond who stays home and might need this message too, send it her way. You never know how powerful a small reminder can be. And hey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, Strong Elderly Life. We've got more real stories, more honest conversations, and a whole lot of heart coming your way. Because you're not alone in this. Not as long as we keep talking, keep growing, and keep showing up for ourselves and each other. Here's to you. To the spark that still lives inside. To the softness, the strength, the surprises that still wait around the corner. Here's to living your best life. Right now, right where you are. Exactly as you are.